Joe Tolle, good morning. Welcome to the morning show.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, brother. Hey, did you by chance get to catch the outdoor motocross yesterday?
Not at all. I was out filming yesterday. Got a little KO 200 side by side.
Pardon?
I have a little KOS 200 side by side that I needed to get filmed. So was out shooting that yesterday with my longest standing test rider, Aaron Meyer's niece, Finley Meyer, who drove the car for us yesterday and just did a really outstanding job. She was really good.
How is the unit?
There's a lot more positives than negatives, I'd say. There's a few points of refinement that need to be addressed that we kind of discovered yesterday, but what I can definitely say is the handling of the machine is really pretty outstanding. Um, it's the chassis and suspension on it are it in the Razor 200, they're just little 200 valve four-stroke engines. So, horsepower is kind of limited. A 200 at ATV is only so thrilling unless you're talking about a 200X three-wheeler that is extremely light and has very little drag, less rolling resistance. The 200 in that kind of a vehicle is pretty fun, and I guess it isn't a side by side too. But by the time you go up to a 700-pound machine, a 200 is a little limiting when you put an adult in it. But on the flats, cruising some flatter trails, little hills, it does pretty well. What was really impressive though is just suspension handling. That car is obviously built for more engine than what it has. Like they could double or triple the horsepower, and that chassis and suspension could take it. It's plush, it's stable, it's super planted. Um, I would say that if you're a parent and you're like, I don't want to put my kid in something and have them go out and tip it over, you'd have to work pretty hard to tip this over. It's almost 60 inches wide, has 10 inches of travel, 10 and a half inches of suspension travel. Um, and it works. Like at the end of the day, of course, I had to jump in and take it for a spin because I asked Finley a lot of questions yesterday as she was driving, but you got to get in and experience it yourself if you can fit in it. And I'm 6 feet. I got in it pretty okay. It's a little cramped, but I didn't bottom it out. And they had a long, steep driveway where you can really just get a ton of speed going because I'd say it probably goes on flat straight with a small rider and it'll probably do 35, but I got video of her going down this driveway probably going 50, just flying
Right.
down, and the car looked so composed, it looked so planted. She said she didn't feel at all sketched out. um yeah, it brakes are good. It's a good car. Has a few things they need to change, but we'll cover that more in depth in our test. uh,
That's cool. Sounds like you guys had a good day then.
We did. It was very productive. Rained a couple times. We had to stop a few times, let it shower, but that gave us a chance to go have lunch. So no complaints.
Nice, nice. Well, let me do a little bit of house cleaning here and then we'll get rolling. We always got to thank Elka Suspension for being there for us. They do a great job taking care of shows like this and their advertisers, their contributors, as well as their riders. Look at how many championships and how many series they're leading. Elka is a dominant force in the suspension industry. So if you have an ATV or a UTV, hey, jump out and get your Elkas. You will enjoy them and your machine will work better. GBC, another leader in the industry as far as tire technology goes. GBC, if you're racing desert, off-road, motocross, UTV, truck, whatever it is, GBC has a tire for you. So you should check those guys out also. The team over there takes great care of us and wants us to make sure that we tell you how great their tires are. We also use their tires on all of our machines. If you see any of the magazine articles that we do, or any of the things that ATV Talk or my affiliated companies that I work with do, GBC are on those machines. Um, we also have some other sponsors like the Blunt family. They're just real enthusiasts. They take great care of us. They wanted us to get the stories out. They enjoy everything that we do. So the family makes sure to support the show. Craig Christie, he's a huge supporter. I worked with Craig in the mid 2000s, 2009. He was the score overall champion. He supports the show as well. Antelope Slot Canyon Tours. We talked a little bit about this the last time. If you're going to go on vacation, go take a tour at Antelope Slant. I can't even talk today. Antelope Slot Canyon, and these you will see things and be mesmerized by those canyons. And if you're an amateur photographer, man, you are really going to enjoy it, because you will be showing photos to your family and friends for a lifetime that will knock their socks off. So go schedule a tour at Antelope Slot Canyons. Excellent. That's our housekeeping for the day. And now we can get rolling. Jet Lawrence seems to be on a tear in the outdoor motocross. I don't know. I didn't get to watch it. All I got to see was the results. He's only 3 points behind his brother. He's tied in points with Chase Saxton. And I think that he's an unstoppable force outdoor.
I was watching a little documentary somebody made on him on YouTube this morning, and they were kind of covering his early career and when he got his first 250, win. And they were saying that he wanted to be like the next Travis Pastrana, being a big, ambassador for the sport and really grow it up, blow it up. I guess they had some big social media aspirations in the beginning, and it was kind of a little bit of a downer. I like Jet. Jet's pretty dominant. Unfortunately, it's going to turn into possibly a 5, 6 year, 7 year run of one guy at the top of the sport, possibly, hopefully not. But they were kind of saying, that since he started a donut company, an apparel company, and that his social media is just like not what it was in the beginning, that it's becoming very commercialized, that he's making so much money that he's sort of not keeping to his original things he said he was going to do in the sport, as far as growing the sport, becoming an ambassador, making it bigger. And the video was kind of interesting. They showed clips of Travis Pastrana, on late night TV talk shows. So I don't know, not mean to go negative with it, but I thought it was pretty interesting. And I heard that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard at Supercross events he's got some like jet zone, like for his fans, and to get into this deal, it's like $2,000 a ticket. Have you heard anything about this?
I haven't heard anything like that. Man, well, I'm going to have to investigate that and figure that out, because that would be just insane. $2,000 just to go root some guy on.
I guess it's to go meet him and be in the pits with him. I don't know. It may not even be true at all, but if it is, it's like there ain't a person walking this planet I'm paying $2,000 to kiss their butt.
I agree. I agree.
Just,
You know what? There's probably less than 5 people in the world that I would really probably want to go meet, that are famous. And I can't, I can only think one right now off the top of my head. Other than that, hey, that's great. Whatever. I don't need to meet any of these people. I don't. They have no bearing on my inner circle, my life, and what I'm doing. So, just meeting them is not going to change anything. Yeah. So I got to take a selfie and shake a hand. What's the big deal?
yeah, and I don't know what truth there is to that, but I thought it was an interesting take on Jet. But obviously, when you're young and you're getting into racing, you can have all these aspirations for all these things you want to do, and then you get into the grind of it, and it becomes harder because he's the top guy, and he's fighting hard to be the top guy. So all the things you say you're going to do in the beginning, it's hard to always follow through with all of it. I thought it was an interesting video because it was kind of like everything's always so often positive. I thought it was an interesting look at like the shortcomings that have happened so far. But hey, when I started this company, I thought I was going to have an ATV channel and a side by side channel and a dirt bike channel and a truck channel. And, it's like you have all these aspirations of what you want to do. And then reality sets in and you can only do what you have time to do. So I'm a big Jet fan still.
I'm a Jet fan with him on the track, and that's about as far as it goes because I've been so disappointed by so many of the riders off the track and their antics and the things they say. Um, you know, so I can see where money changed a portion of him, and that happens. I won't hold that against him. I hope nobody else does because I think if you were given millions of dollars and I was given millions of dollars, things would change.
Oh, sure.
There would be, if we're still doing this, there would be massive changes in how I do it. And some people would like it and some people wouldn't. We're down to earth, and you can see that it's a real, we put in a real effort here because there's two of us. There's myself and my daughter, and we work our butts off. And I hear stories about your show and the things that you have to do, and you're doing the work, and nobody else is doing it for you. And if you have lots of money and people are doing things, taking care of you, basically wiping your nose and your butt, uh, you get kind of arrogant and you forget your roots. And I never want to do that. That's one of the hardships I had with even doing the show is, I don't want people to think that it's about me because it's really not. I want it to be about the industry. I want it to be about what we're talking about. And I love ATV racing. I love ATVs. I want people to think about ATVs, not think about me.
Well,
Because when I'm gone, nobody's going to think about me. They're going to think about the ATVs.
right. No, when I'm gone, I'll just leave the world with a whole bunch of ATV review videos that they can look back to their childhood. And I remember that video. Yeah, I remember that four wheeler. So yeah, that'll be.
Nice.
Did
Go ahead.
the outdoor national yesterday was Southwick? Is that
Yes.
right? Oh, I'll have to go back and watch it. Yeah, when I was running the national series for quads with John Pellin in 04, 05. Yeah, we went to Southwick one year, and I thought it was one of the neatest tracks on the series. It wasn't full of death jumps, just like LaRocco's leap, 100 and whatever 30-foot uphill triple. It was just a sand track. Obviously there's jumps, it's motocross, but it didn't seem super technical. It just seemed super rough and inside outside lines developing it. To me, it was one of the neatest tracks on the series to watch the riders on, just because it gets so brutally rough because it's a sand track.
I think that the rougher they are, the better. I remember Carlsbad because, it was 45 minutes away from us and they never groomed it. They would turn the sprinklers on and water it. And what it was what it was. And there were like in the turns, there were moguls. And everywhere there would be a couple fast lines that the faster guys created. But you just rode where you rode because by the end of the day, it was slick, hard, and dusty and rough and rough. I mean, anybody that rode Carlsbad knew how rough it was because it just beat you to death. But so when I see them groom tracks today and till them and do all this work to them, I'm thinking, why are you doing this? This is supposed to be motocross. This is not TT cross. This is motocross. Let's leave it rough. And anybody says, oh, the track's too rough. You know what? Then maybe you should ride TT. go back to some old school ways. You have more suspension, a better quality machine, and you're complaining that the track's rough? You have
Well,
no idea.
and it's you want it to be different, it's like everybody complain, I wouldn't say everybody complains, but listen, I agree with what you're saying. Like you go to your average track, they're chisel plowing it a foot and a half deep, breaking it up. It's like if it's not a loamy track that they can develop all their lines in, and I'm kind of bagging on the two wheel scene more than the quad scene, even though they do it too. Um, I don't understand why every track has to be super deep plowed. And it's like, well, we need our ruts. It's like, no, learn how to ride, learn how to corner, you know,
Right.
learn how to ride in any terrain. It's like we ride all terrain vehicles, which means it's going to be, it should be different. Like, I don't know. I agree with you. Like every track shouldn't be plowed deep. Why do they make hard pack tires when there's no hard pack tracks anymore? Like let them get hard as concrete. Let them get blue grooved,
Right.
because maybe some guy that can't ride ruts, that sucks at riding ruts can go out and win and get up front. Let there be different kinds of tracks that suit different kinds of riders. I mean, just look at a mud race in Supercross, how it just shakes up the entire field. If if you build all the motocross tracks and prep them all in a very similar fashion, and you've got that one fast guy that is good at that type of track that's plowed deep, that's all tilled up, it's riding on cake, gets rutted up. The guy that specializes and does that well, if you prep every track the same, then that guy's just going to win every race. Whereas, have a sand track like a Southwick, but then have something like a Carlsbad that gets rock hard. I saw a race there I remember, I'll date myself. The Nashville network on cable TV had a race one year from the Golden State National Series at Carlsbad, and they were talking about how hard pack it was. And you could see these guys coming out of corners, and the guys that didn't have good clutch and throttle control, they'd be fishtailing because they couldn't hook up. Well, shake it up, have the tracks be different so that different types of riders with a different skill set can have a shot at it. So a guy that can't ride ruts, but he's got great throttle control and great body position and great clutch control can, go out there and win because the track's different. Makes it more interesting for the viewers, probably makes it more interesting for the riders, except the guy who likes riding in a plowed track.
Which you think about what you just talked about with the Golden State National Series in Carlsbad. Back then, they didn't have tire choice. You had brands, Bridgestone, Dunlop, XXX, whatever they were, right? And their compound was their compound. As we've gotten better and the technology's gotten better, different compounds came in. Okay, so with Maxxis, I believe there was different compound motocross tires. When we were running ITPs, there were different compound motocross tires. And, and I don't know what just happened to you, but you slow mode and you're drinking that cup of coffee forever.
Yeah, that was
Did you catch that, Joe?
I did. I heard every bit of it.
Slow-mo coffee cup drinking. But the shocks, the suspension, everything has changed so much. That brings us to our next segment of our conversation today. And you and I have been kind of a little bit ignoring the topic, but the rider list is out. The event is happening. People are excited. Riders are training. The Legends event at Briarcliff is happening. We have Doug Gus Jober, Doug Eichner, Wimmer, Brown, Natalie,
Which Brown,
Soman,
Pat or Thomas?
Pat.
Oh,
I
Will.
can't believe they didn't ask Thomas Brown. I don't even know. Well, maybe he couldn't go.
I wonder if Pat Brown will be rocking his classic OG sideburns from the early 2000s. That's the thing I'm most interested to see.
Not sure. There's a bunch of other names on there. I wanted to, take a little deep dive in this, and they've talked about qualifying and 5 lap motos. I don't exactly know what the format's going to be, just some preliminary stuff that I've read. What do you think about how serious they're taking it as a race?
Oh, I think it's going to depend on age, uh, fitness level. I think the guys that feel like they can win are going to go out there and give it 100%. And I think you're going to have some guys that are there that are just going for fun, that are just there to get on the track again. You know, I think it's just going to depend on how deep you are in the field. The closer you are to the front, I mean, it's like any other race, I guess. The closer you are to the front, the more serious the guys are taking it. John Natale, he's an animal. He'll be giving it 100%. If Bird says that he didn't want to go if he's not in shape, so I'd expect him to be training hard.
He's training hard. I've had lots of conversation with him. He's worried about um, their age. There's just I think that the reality for Bird is I'm 50 some years old now. I don't heal the same. I retired in 18 because of injuries, and I'm healthy. Yeah, I'm heavy, but I'm healthy, and I don't want to be unhealthy again because of injury to this. So he's a little worried about that. I'm really good friends with Doug Eichner, and he's 59 years old. My concern is, Doug,
Wow.
at 50, you don't bounce, you break. And that's what I'm worried about with him. Some of the other guys, I'm not as close with them. I don't know them as well. I know Natali's in extremely good shape and will be fast. We seen him a couple years ago on the West Coast ride, and he looked like he hadn't missed a step. Looked like he could compete at the pro level still. So, all of the guys have been riding. You've seen Shane Hitt was out at Briarcliff practicing. Um, uh, Wimmer has been practicing. I've seen videos of some of the other guys riding. I do not know if Gust is riding because I know it's his time of year to work. So his schedule's pretty heavy, but he was still in good shape. He didn't gain a bunch of weight. He didn't look like he had lost too much. He rides motorcycles. Um, so I just wanted to get a little deeper into your thoughts of, is this really what we want to do with these guys? Do we really want to put them out there and make it a real bolt to bolt race and see who the best is at this age?
I don't know. Um, I'm not the promoter. I report the news. I try not to make the news unless, obviously testing a four wheeler, you got to give your opinion. But I got to say, going into it, I was a little surprised that they're doing the main track. I, back when John Pellin did the original Legends race, he did it at Pine Lake. That's a TT. It's fast, but there's not a lot of chance of bike rider separation at 20 feet in the air. So, I originally, first question I had when I heard this event was going to happen was, is Jeremy going to prep the vet track for this event and just let the legends do the legends race on the vet track, or are they going to do it on the main track? Because I went up there with John Pellin about 6 months ago, and we filmed some three-wheeler tests that will be coming out in the fall. I want to hold them till then because that's when the viewership's best on YouTube. But just looking at that track, there's just huge jumps. Not all, but some. And yeah, I kind of thought the same thing. Like, how many of these guys are going to send this stuff? I get it. Like when I go out and I film with Aaron Meyer, um, who's in his 30s, got to be mid late 30s now. We went out the other day, filmed that Raptor Scrambler Renegade comparison, and he just jumps on a quad now and first time on it, 1,000 cc's, chucks it into a corner like he never got off. And I'm sure that some of these guys are going to do really good. And I'm sure some of these guys are going to be probably a little scared shitless and hopefully just make good judgment calls and don't get themselves hurt. Let me ask you, what do you think would have been a better call? You've gone to a lot more races than me. I did it for a few years. You did it for a few decades. So do you think that they would have been better off to do this on the main track or prep the vet track and give them a more tamed down track they can run just to put on a show?
I think that they've advertised it as a race. I'll just lay it out both ways for you. They've advertised it as a race. They've promoted it as a race. They've positioned all of the people to race, to prep, because you're going to have a qualifier. You're going to have two motos. They've given it set times. They've made it legit in the show. So this is real. This is a real thing. We are going to take these young and old legends, pros, old former pros, and put them out there at the height of the sport and make them gladiators again when some of them haven't done it in 10, 12 years or
Do you,
more.
do you know what the
And
age differential is between the youngest and the oldest guy?
I think the youngest guy's 34 and the oldest guy is 59.
Yeah, that's a gap.
And there's no comparison with a few of the people that are in the group are not legends. A few of them I don't even know who they are. But just because I don't know them doesn't mean anything. There's some guys in there that are young enough that maybe they shouldn't be allowed just because of their age, because they're still a fire breathing dragon. Because look at Weenan, 38, 39 years old, still a stud. On the West Coast, you have a 40-year-old that's still a professional, a former champion, been cheated out of the ability to have a new championship, but a 12th title. But that's neither here nor there. You
Get
know,
it, get it in, Lenny.
huh?
Get it in.
Right. If I'm going to throw a dig, I'm going to throw a dig, right?
Right.
I got a signed jersey from that guy in the mail. Can you believe that? Pretty
I believe.
awesome stuff. But in my theory, a qualifier, two or three guys on the track at a time, more autograph sessions, more um, fanfare waving, things like that. Uh, some 20-minute practice sessions where they're out there riding, can do some starts with them, things like that. Make it a fun event. Do some scrambles type racing with them so that it's their lap times are going to be who wins the race, not head to head going into the first turn, with 20 guys, things like that. That's just where I'm seeing a motocross event should be. The TT stuff, yeah, it could get pretty hairy in the first turn and then they spread out. Maybe it's not as exciting for the crowd, but these guys are fierce. Their minds still think their competitors still think they can go out and win another national title, and that scares me. That does it. This is what I'm worried about, because I don't want to see anybody end up on the ground, especially anybody that's in my inner circle, and all these guys are in the circle that I am looking at, even the people that I don't really know. I don't want to see anything happen to them. But I'm not the guy putting it on. Jeremy Osborne is, and I trust Jeremy He puts on a great event every year. I'm sure that he is thinking about some of this stuff, but what do you do? They're grown men. You got to let them do what they got to do. And some of them haven't grown up yet, and that's okay. I'm one of them. I just
Right.
I just hurt now some days, and I don't want anybody else to hurt. So, um, let's go racing, I guess, right?
Yeah, and it should be a good event. I also saw that they were doing it before, but not for the whole series this year. But I guess they're also gonna have a two-stroke class at Briarcliff this year, which hopefully not doing a whole series of it. Hopefully they get a decent turnout for a two-stroke class. That would be fun to listen to and smell. So love bean oil.
Just on an offshoot of this, I have been contacted multiple times by more than one person. Why is Eichner not on a Banshee? Well, because we didn't have enough time to prep it and get one ready for him to ride. Um, I would have loved to have seen that, but unfortunately, the two legger Banshees that I am building right now are far enough away that we couldn't get them done in time to put them out on the track. Um, that would have been awesome to see Doug on a legger Banshee out there doing his thing like he did in the later '90s. It would have been a lot of fun. Would have been a lot of fun to see that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't even want to say how cool it would be because it's not going to happen. So it would
No,
it would would have been neat to see because it seemed like once the 250Rs went to big bore cylinders, the time of the Banshee in that open class kind of came and went. It seemed like the Banshee fell off once we started having 310 and 330 Hondas. Um, which arguably maybe they should have never let those bikes in the class, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't think that. I think that it went away because the Honda was such a premier machine, and everybody had Honda parts. So to make their 330 or their fictitious 310 a real deal, it was easier, to buy and build a Legger Banshee. That was tough. You had to understand how to make it work, and we were first guys there. Mark Lager had a Banshee and Eichner had one, and we got to touch it immediately. I know there was some intake issues. They worked those out, but there were a couple little things that you had to understand about that Banshee to get it to work right, and we did. And Doug's Banshee that he won all those races on was awesome. And him and Joe Bird had a shootout. They beat each other. They beat each other up. They both, I think, ended up getting injured uh, in Muddy Creek, racing against each other. Um, it ended up doing some knee damage to Doug, and I don't remember what happened to Joe, but they were running into each other, knocking each other off the track. They each got penalized a position, so the positions didn't change. So there was no punishment. But I don't think that they're friends to this day. Um, I know that Joe's expressed wanting to bury the hatchet, but Doug's just not on the same page, We'll see how that works out in Briarcliff. I hope that they shake hands and can walk away friends and talk about the fun races time. And because that's what it's all about. When you get these guys' age and you've retired, it's about getting together and hashing out the races and talking about who was faster and laughing and ribbing each other and having a beer and going your separate ways, because you may not see those individuals again because they may not have another event or you may not physically be able to ride in it. So
Yeah. I'm just thinking about Eichner choosing to bang bars with Dirty Bird. It's kind of like why would you try to bang bars with Matasevic? It's like when you got a guy that's known to bang, you might want to avoid it. But Eichner's a little guy, isn't he?
yes, he is. Dynamite comes in small packages, man. He is. He's always been a fierce competitor with the short wick. And if everybody knows what a wick is, uh, he gets riled up pretty quick. And, once he does, he's a force. He doesn't back down, even when the odds are against him and he's actually by not backing down, he's going to hurt himself or lose. He just doesn't do it. And the older Doug is a far better rider. Not maybe the older Doug now, but as he got into his 40s, Doug became a much better rider, faster, smoother, uh, just all around better. And that guy racing back east would have been much more fun than the younger Doug. The younger Doug was just freaking get it done and ride it into the ground. Um, Still fun to watch, but didn't have the success that the older Doug did.
Patience.
Right, and you could talk about all of those guys. I mean, the only thing we can't talk about Eichner about is his training program. It was never like a Gust or some of these other guys. Doug drank Pepsi and kamikazes and trained a little, but not near as much as people think. He was just a naturally physical guy that had a gas tank that just never ran dry.
Out there, there's advantage to being a little smaller. It's easier to hang on. It's the big strong dudes a lot that you see getting arm pump.
I can honestly tell you 3 times in Doug's career that I worked with him in almost 14 years that he got tired.
We'll find out if he gets tired at 59 here in a couple of weeks.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. I'm looking forward to seeing, the Shane hit, the Gust, the Natali. Shane's still a little fire plug too. He's, when you talk to Shane, he has still got the same energy that he had when he was younger. Um, and I don't get to talk to Natali much, but watching Natali at the Huevos race in California, man, in shape, no fat on that guy, 40 some years old, and just a monster. Still unbelievable,
Yeah, he's a fire plug.
Yeah, and he's not a little guy. He's not a big guy, but he's not a little guy either. Um,
He's not super tall, but he's thick. I mean, he's a muscled up dude. Yeah, he back in the day he was like a small pro wrestler. Yeah, he was fit. He was buffed up. I mean, he was one of the most, back when I was running the series with ATV scene, he was probably the most muscled up guy at in the class.
right. And he's always been ripped. I remember the first time I saw Natalia in 91, and he was ripped then and he was a kid. And he just got thicker and more ripped as he got older. So, I mean, unbelievable specimen. Joe Bird is also somebody that we should talk about because rolling into this, he's had to lose close to 50 pounds. And it wasn't all fat. Yeah, he was eating donuts and drinking alcohol, but
Wow, what a
he was
comment.
also lifting weights, so he was getting big because he was lifting weights, and he's a big man anyways at 6'4". When he raced to 20, he was 205 pounds. And now, losing that much weight. And his wife, I think he's gonna have to sleep on the couch if he doesn't win the thing. Because his wife is saying, if you're gonna go, you're going there to win.
Oh man, no pressure, no pressure.
Right. So some of the things that I've gotten to talk to a few people about, it's going to make it really interesting how the race breaks down, mindset. You know, that's a big thing, mindset for some of these guys. I know there are people going there to shake hands, wave, hug babies and take pictures. And I know there's other guys out there that want that last hurrah. And that last hurrah is the thing that scares me a bit, you know?
I gotta say, as a guy who's always been a fan of the hardware, I'm one of the things I'm most interested to see is who shows up with what. Like, what are these guys going to be racing? Are they going to show up with an old championship bike if you're like a Dustin Wimmer? Or are they going to have like a replica of what they used to race? Do they still have an old race bike they used to race? Are they going to borrow somebody's bike? I'm interested to see what everybody shows up and runs.
I don't know what. So I've heard Hit's going to be on a big bore two stroke.
Nice.
I know Eichner's going to be on a 450 Yamaha. Natali's going to be on a 450 Yamaha. Um, Wimmer and Gust are supposedly going to be on Suzuki's.
Oh, that'll be exciting. Yeah, that'll be super cool.
Yeah, they're going to be their factory bikes. From what I'm gathering, I don't have 100% on Gust, knowing exactly what he's going to do. Bird still hasn't decided whether he's going to ride a two stroke or a four stroke. I told him to ride one of his four strokes. You know, he has his 2018 race bike that's never touched the dirt. And I said, Joe, I probably wouldn't race that one, because it's a great machine, and it's probably worth more that it hasn't been touched than if go ride one of the ones that you've had in the dirt, you know, that you know is good. Um, so it's a mixed bag of what everybody's.
Not to switch
You
subjects.
were going to say something,
I do because like not to switch
Joe?
subjects, but you're
Did you
just talking
freeze again?
being. No, I'm here.
Okay. What were you saying?
Not to totally switch subjects, and we can come right back. But just with you talking about Joe Bird having his 2018 race bike that's never been ridden. I've got a new set of 400EX plastic in the basement, and I was talking to somebody the other day that said one of the aftermarket dealers, one of these big part suppliers that, and I don't know if this is true, maybe you've heard it, a new set of 400EX rear fenders at this point in a box is selling for like $1,000. I don't remember which aftermarket dealer it was, but I don't know if Honda's ran out of it. But I heard that there has been just a crushing price increase on 400EX OEM plastic.
I agree because you know, we don't have to go back to we can transition to our ATV conversation about the machines that we don't want to see people buying and building. 400EX is one of those machines. And yes, you are seeing a increase in OEM hard parts that people can't get a hold of. And for fenders going up, 250R fenders are ungodly expensive, you know, $2,500, $3,000 for new.
Oh yeah,
So I
they
can
have.
see a new 400. Pardon?
I was saying, yeah, those have been that expensive, but I heard just recently that the 400EX
What?
stuff has just gone through the roof.
Yeah, because you can't buy it. You know, I believe OEM Banshee plastic is expensive too because you can't buy it either.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's incredible how expensive it is. Um,
Well, you know what? I had
so
that.
Square
I had,
One Speed is talking about Natalie and Wimmer, not to go back on our. We're having a connection issue. I think that I'm talking over you, and we keep talking over each other. I'm sorry about that, Joe. Are you
no, keep
back?
rolling. Yeah, I'm here. Keep
So
rolling.
Square One in the chat was talking about Natalie and Wimmer definitely being going for it and training. He also brought up a name that I forgot to mention, Spader. He's coming out on his non-championship bike, the bike that he was riding after he quit riding for Duncan. Um, and he's going to be riding that 250R. So we'll see Travis Spader, who's a physical specimen and always has been. We'll see how good he does. Um, I never really liked the Honolulu Hills Taft racetrack. It was okay. Um, I just never had great luck there. It was either good or bad. So Square One was talking about that course. It's fun, but it was just never thrilling to me.
Which track?
I would Honolulu Hills in Taft.
Hmm.
If I wanted to see a bitchin' motocross race, I'd like to see him come to Mesquite. Have you ever been there, Joe?
No.
It's a bitchin' course. It's bitchin'. It's um hard. It's not native. I don't think it's. I think they brought some clay in. It might be clay from the air. Uh, um, but the flow of the track, the side of the jumps, just really bitching like a back east motocross track with some of the size of the jumps they have, where it's a real motocross track. It does get really rough. Unfortunately, they groom it just like everything else, but a lot of fun. I think that you could have a real bitchin' motocross race there. We got a little off kilter. We were talking about 400 EXs and I bounced backwards, but um, as we transition and we talk about the 400 EX, Joe, I would love to see Honda still support that because it's a great machine for your entry level people to ride. It's reliable, it's fun it handles, it does everything you need a beginning rider to have. It's not too tippy. The ergonomics are good. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, I think it's a machine that has enough performance, especially depending upon where you live. Now, I haven't ridden one in the dunes, but they have good low end power, so that probably is a benefit for getting going. But I can speak for back east here, yeah, and I agree. It has enough power where it's like, you can have bikes that are just too much for the average guy, and then you can have small bikes where if you're just riding it by yourself, you'll get bored after a while. Obviously, it doesn't matter if you've got a couple of 50s. If you got a couple of them and two guys out there, you can have fun for a long time. But to me, the 400EX is it's a machine where it's like it does so much well. It's hard to fault it. The ergonomics are good. You set pretty low on it. It's not super wide. That's maybe one thing that's a little outdated about the platform is if it were to ever come back, it could be wider a little bit. But I mean, it's got enough power to get you entertained. It's got enough power to climb just about any hill you want to climb in the woods. It's almost got 250R handling, which is, it's not the measuring stick for handling anymore, but it was for so long. It still handles great. It's hard to fault it. Ergonomics, good. Motor is sufficient. The stock shocks were good for the trail, maybe not quite up to track or, something like that, but it's a perfect example of good enough and a tremendous platform to build from. Obviously, you're not going to make a 400EX run with a built 450, but who cares? Um, if you're fast, you can have fun. If you're a beginner, it's easy to learn on because of the type of power it's got. I mean, it's hard to fault that bike. I think the biggest thing you could say to fault it was that when it came out, some people were disappointed that it wasn't more like what the YFZ 450 turned out to be when it came out. Um, one of the best wreck bikes ever built. It would still
Um,
be
yeah,
market.
probably. I think 400 EXs would still sell well if people were buying them, you know?
Now wait,
Are we still selling, if they were still selling 400 EXs, people would still be buying them because it's such a great machine,
and Honda,
you know?
Honda would dispute that, but because if it was selling great, why did they kick it to the curb? I don't know if it got too expensive, if they just didn't do anything to change it. Um, I think if they brought it back now, fuel injected, which it would be, with some minor changes, it'd be a great it would be a great alternative to the Raptor 700. I know it's way smaller. I know it doesn't make that kind of horsepower,
I think
but
it would be outstanding. For for an offshoot, a fuel injected four stroke like that, do you think they'd have to make it water cooled?
they don't make the CRF 250F water cooled.
Right.
And Honda and Honda markets that as a wreck bike. Lots of people who review it, you know, they
Yeah, I don't know.
they compliment it for its simplicity. I don't know that air cooled was ever a big hindrance. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, keep the motor the same, make it fuel injected. That probably because that motor design is super reliable, and you're not going to have a ton of problems. Even making it fuel injected, it's not going to hurt it in any way, shape, or form. It's just going to make it more easier for the consumer, and they can get away from the problems that the fuel related issues that you have with carburetors with the bad fuel of today. So that's a bonus.
Yeah. I doubt, are we going to see it? Probably not, but we could dream. Hold on,
Yeah,
hold on. 400EX. It's only going to get more valuable.
right, right, and it is. And more people are buying them. Even if you can't support them, they're buying them because they're still super durable. There are a lot of parts out there. Yeah, it's hard to find some of the training pieces that you need, but they're still out there. You can still find them. I don't know what there is out there for billet gear manufacturers. I haven't looked into that at all, but I'm sure that that's not far behind, especially with the people that are making the 250R stuff. You'll have a cult following for 400EXs coming, and they'll be producing more and more product for it. Maybe not super high performance stuff, but the cases didn't seem to fail unless somebody butchered them. Things like that. I think it's just going to be a good machine.
And it's not to be a Debbie Downer, but like I've seen a few video clips from Trike Fest because Trike Fest is an annual event that happens like the third weekend of June every year in Haspin Acres in Laurel, Indiana, which is very conveniently close to me. That's one of my places I grew up riding, and a place that I still go film a few times a year. Uh, it's a cool place. They've got a little bit of everything. Um, but they do a big trike event there every year, and hundreds of people show up with all kinds of old three wheelers. And I think, in ways, not to bash on anybody, I think it used to be a little cooler, but that's just because I like motocross racing, and they used to race motocross. And now it seems like they don't, they just do more like stupid events like Herc and Jerk, where they tie a couple of big reds to each other and they see who can pull each other down the road. And I'm just sitting there going like, well, you're just beating the crap out of your three wheeler for nothing for this, but whatever. And they're doing some circle track stuff. I wish they were doing motocross, but looking at it, to me, the thing that's the biggest bummer with the three wheelers right now is that these guys were the outlaws a few years ago. They had the vehicles and they went to this event and they loved it. And they had the vehicles nobody wanted. Like, you could go buy a 250R that was really nice for $1,500. And some people are like, oh, I remember when you could get them for 400 and nobody wanted them. And it's like, well, that deal might have existed. But that wasn't the norm. Normally a nice clean 250R was $1,200, $1,500 around here for in the longest time. And 200Xs, you could find those things for $700, $800, $900. Now I look at freaking Marketplace and all these crackheads that are selling them, and they're like, it's not even mint, and they want $3,000, $2,500 for a 200X. So I kind of look at that event now, and it's like, these aren't just a bunch of cowboys that are out here riding these death machines that nobody wants anymore because they're rebels, which to me, I thought that was cool. And that's kind of what got me attracted to the whole trike scene in the beginning was, nobody wants these things, but yet they're just this tremendous part of the history of the sport. And a lot of people had fun on them for a decade or more. So, I got to get into this three-wheeler scene. But now, here I am, and it's 10 years after we did our first, ATC 250R, 85, 86 classics test. And then we did the 350X classics test. That was a $1,500 250R. I had a $1,300 350X. It needed a center case. Unfortunately, I found out after I bought it, but I got one off eBay. And now, to just find parts or to buy one is just ungodly expensive. It's like almost impossible to get yourself a nice three-wheeler and go play that game, because people want Banshee money for them. It's kind of a drag, honestly. It's kind of a buzzkill. So anyway, if you want to buy a really nice mint, fully built 200X or a 350X, holler at your boy. Coming soon to a marketplace near you, because if some people are selling some of this shit stuff out here for $3, $4, $5 grand, I ought to be able to get a mint for mine, because they're not pieces of crap. But it's kind of a drag, and I'd hate to see the 400EX kind of go that way, to where instead of being a good, reliable four-wheeler that you could buy for $2,500, and it's like, okay, I got it inexpensively, I can go ride. I'm just worried that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, it's going to be like mint 400EX, $6,000. Like, that's what I don't want to see happen. But that's the price that we're going to pay if we only have one manufacturer
that's
in the market.
the $6,000 400EX in mint. The $6,000 400EX in mint condition is going to hurt the industry. You want to keep those machines down in price so that you can get people in. It's just like blasters. Right now, they're priced in market range where people can buy them and use them, and it's a great deal. But I don't think that if you start changing a blaster, and
it's ending. Those days are coming to an end. Oh, the prices are creeping, and they're creeping fast. Like, if love them or hate them, you've got this guy Michael Sabo who does a lot of builds on the internet, and some people, the kids love him because they think he's cool, and some of the old timers can't stand him because they say he uses cheap Chinese crap. Hey, don't kill the messenger. I don't care if you love the guy or not. I don't know him. I haven't watched enough of his content to really have an opinion. But, he did a video on a blaster, did well. Like, that guy, everything he's touching right now, whether you think he does a good job with what he does or not, if you're an old timer, everything he touches does 250,000 views, 300,000 views, 500,000 views. He's got that young enthusiast audience, and he did a blaster build, and you're starting to see more people tinkering with them. And then you go to Marketplace 2 weeks later, and guys like, blaster, $3,000. It's like, dude, come on. Like, seriously, $3,000? That thing was 3,400 brand new. When I looked at it brand new in 1990, it was $23.99, $28.99. I'd have to go back and read the article, but it was under $3,000. It was like, wow, I could buy that. Now they're trying to sell blasters in the threes. It's like, man, you do not have a 250R. You don't have an LT 250. It's a freaking blaster. but it's happening to that bike because what other two-stroke can you go get? I remember when LT 250s were all day long, when 250Rs were $5,000 because everybody in 6,000 because everybody wanted them as a race bike. You could still go buy an LT 250 for $2,000, $2,500, $1,500, especially the 85, 86. Now, clapped out 85s, they want $3,000 for them. Those older bikes are becoming rarer, and the offering of new bikes are becoming rarer. So the demand on the used market is just growing astronomically.
And to be honest, it's probably only going to get worse because I don't see, our last conversation last weekend or last Sunday, talking about, a new bike coming. There's nothing coming. Nobody's going to bring a new bike. You're not going to see anything for a while, if at all. And it's probably going to come from a Chinese manufacturer, and some of the people in our industry will complain and whine and throw a fit, but I won't, because hey, it's a new machine. They're going to use it. It's going to be ridden. They may not hit the nail right on the head right off. It may take them a few tries to get a really solid bitchin' bike, but then again, you never know. They could build us one that is good as a 400EX or some of these other models and make it awesome for the industry growth. May not be a race bike, but not everything's got to be a race bike, because not everybody in the industry is a racer.
You
Most,
know,
most, go ahead.
and where, that's the thing, is that back in the day, the ATC 70, it was never a race bike. People raced it. The Blaster was never built to be a race bike, but it had a 200 air-cooled class at the ATV Nationals that adults rode. There used to be a time, and then I kind of touched on this when we raced the Raptor at the GNCC, was that there was a time when we raced everything. But then in the early 2000s, we got spoiled with this crop of 450 race quads. And now nobody looks at anything other than a 450 as a race bike anymore. So, yeah,
it used to be run what you brung. Now it's it's got to be a 450, a YFC 450R.
But
no, it doesn't.
We were going to talk about today, and I want to try to nudge us that way if I can. Is like what quads, and they're not even necessarily sport quads, but we're dropping a test Monday night on the 2024 Renegade 1000 XXC, and that machine costs $15,949. The Scrambler S is $17,000, I think $999. It's an $18,000 four-wheeler. I walked into, when I was out shooting that KO yesterday with Aaron Meyer's niece, his brother Casey, it's his daughter, and in Casey's garage, he's got, a Honda Recon. And I'm walking up to that Honda Recon, and like that little two-wheel drive Honda is in ways more exciting to me to be around than a lot of the other ATVs that are on the market. And that might sound ridiculous to a lot of people, but everything that little thing has is what made ATVing great in the beginning. And people have completely become disconnected from what the whole point of ATVs dating back to the three-wheeler days were all about. It was about, if you're a recreational guy, it's about fun, affordable, and reliable. And if you're a utility type buyer, it's about affordable and reliable and probably somewhat versatile. if you go back and you look at the old Yamaha Tri-Moto ads, they're like, oh man, there ain't much that you can't do out here on the farm. What you can do with your truck that you can't do with your Yamaha Tri-Moto. And I spend about $1 a week on gas for it. You know, they were simple, easy machines that didn't use much fuel, didn't take up much space in the garage, could get you out there, do a lot of chores that didn't require you to hop on a big tractor or use a pickup truck. And that was the whole thing about ATVs in the early 80s, was the simplicity, affordability, and the versatility. And now, you know, you've got these companies where it's like, you know, why go buy a used pickup truck when you can buy our side by side that costs as much as your pickup truck? It's like, wait, whatever happened to that simple machine that did all those little tasks that didn't require you to take the truck out or get the tractor out? Like, it's lost. You know, that's been lost. And you know, looking at Casey's little Honda Recon 250 yesterday, it's like everything about that machine is what kind of makes four-wheelers great. It's little, it doesn't take up a lot of space. Compared to everything else you go by today, it's freaking cheap. It's about as reliable as a piece of granite. Granite probably breaks easier than the Honda Recon. You don't have to work on it. It's easy to get on and off of. Like, it's not, when you get on it, it's, you just throw a leg over it. But you know, because it's small. If you're older and you're not as mobile as you used to be, it's a whole lot easier to get on a little Honda Recon than it is to jump on, you know, a massive 4x4 ATV, or maybe even getting in and out of a side by side all day long. Those machines are still out there. They're less common, but they're still there, and they're just as good and versatile as they ever used to be, and people just don't think about them.
Hey, not to change the subject on you, but Square One just told me that he tried to buy a YFZ and the dealer told him the best deal he could give him was 15K.
Yeah, that's a notoriously bad dealership. I talked to Jeff Hansen about that. Um, Sorry, Jeff Hansen. And he's like, you know, he told me the same thing. He's like, oh, I don't remember what the name of the dealership was. Ian, throw it up in the chat so we can bag on them for being price gougers.
Yeah, because it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, don't shop there. But that's, you know, it's two things. You know, it's number one, they're jerks. And number two, Yamaha won't build enough. Like, Yamaha is building just enough of these things to almost fill the demand and ensuring that they don't have to discount. And you know, as an ATV guy, I love it because it's like almost everything from every manufacturer right now, you can finance it for dirt cheap, or they're giving $3, $4, $5, $10,000 off, just depending what it is. You know, you can go buy an RM 450. If anybody's looking for a great deal, you can go buy a brand new 24 RM 450 right now for $69.99 here locally in Ohio. And I've heard of that deal elsewhere. It's like brand new 450 under $7,000. I don't care if it hasn't been changed in 8 years. It's more bike than 90% of the people out there can handle. And a new 25 will cost you over 10. You can buy that thing for 7. You know, it's an outstanding deal. But let me tell you what you can't get that kind of deal on: a Yamaha Sport Quad, because they build just enough to meet the demand, but not to exceed it.
Right.
So
ride now, Goodyear.
Yeah, ride now. Don't ride now with Ride Now, because they want to price gouge you. They want to take advantage of you if you're a Sport Quad guy. Middle finger to Ride Now.
So Mr. Bean says a 2023 MZ 450 for $49.99.
An
Did you hear that, Joe?
MZ, a which 450?
RMZ, sorry. Can't read.
Oh, okay. Which year? What year was it?
23.
A 23, still new
Still
for
new.
under 5. That's outstanding. And really, it's the same bike.
Yeah.
It's the same bike.
Same bike. As much as I would rather buy a Honda, but I'd rather pay $5,000 for a 2023 RMZ. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I mean, I'm a diehard Honda guy, but
I could go buy a brand new Honda, or I could go buy a brand new RM 450 and a parts bike.
yeah, I have two. I could have two for the price of one on the other.
Practice bike
Yep.
race. Remember when people had the money to do that?
Oh yeah, you always had to have two. A backup, your practice bike be identical to your race bike. Can't do that anymore. He bought a new CRF 450 instead. How much was the difference in Mr. Beans or MX Beans? I want to know that. But Joe, as always, brother, I know that you have a busy schedule today, and I want to thank you so much for coming on. I have family here from out of town, and they're wanting to. He wishes he bought a KTM instead. Uh, I would never buy a KTM, but that's okay. Um,
Did you ever ride the 300 EXC?
no, but uh, really quick before we tune off today, a friend of mine that used to work with us, and he's a great kid. He went out and bought a new motorcycle. Well, he went out and bought the fuel injected 300 from KTM, and I've already asked him when it cools down a little bit here on the West Coast, we are going to go out and ride it for the day together and shoot it up and walk around it, talk about it, and look at it. It's everything he talks about it is a beautiful machine. He's had it out and ridden it a few times in the dunes. He says it's an outstanding motorcycle.
Well,
I hope he's right.
I would love to know what percentage of all their sales is that 300 two-stroke platform. Because I mean, it's just anecdotal, but every time I meet somebody and I start talking power sports with them for the first time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got a KTM." In my head, already there is, I'm going to ask this guy what bike he's got, and there's about a 50% chance he's going to tell me it's a 300 two-stroke. And it usually is, like half the time. Oh, I've got the 300 EXC. It's got to be one of the most popular dirt bikes on the planet.
I think it is just for overall handling and ease of ride. There are some guys out there that are still two-stroke diehard, traditionalist, and want to ride the two-stroke because it's cheaper to maintain, so on and so forth. I think that I'm hoping that when I ride it, it's everything that I think it's going to be. And no, I'm not a KTM fan, but I don't care about it about that in this particular case. I've just never heard a bad review on this model, and I want to ride it. I want to know.
Ever since the first year when I was reading Dirt Bike Magazine back in the 90s, they were in love with that bike year one. And it's never changed. My buddy Doug Kirk works at Sunstar. He's the marketing guy there now. He's got one, and he's like, on one hand, you can lug it like a 4-stroke, or lug it like a big bore 2-stroke, like a 500, just, or a KDX 200. It's got that low end grunt. You can be lazy and ride it, or you can scare the crap out of yourself with it if you wind it up. So yeah, I'd love to ride one. I'm looking forward to your report.
Yeah, I've been telling everybody for 2 years I was going to go do this, and I had it all lined up to go earlier this year and do it. And my buddy, another friend of mine, sold his. Well, this young man came in. He says he's not going to sell this machine. It's brand new. It's a 24, and we're going to go ride it and film it and get a review. And hopefully you won't be able to see me ride this machine and fall over. There's some great information in the chat, guys. I appreciate you guys jumping in. I don't think I'd be buying a Ducati dirt bike, because I wouldn't buy a Ducati street bike solely because I'm not mature enough to ride one. I would plant myself in the back of a semi or something, but that's neither here nor there. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate all your insights. We will be back here next Sunday. Maybe Jeff Hinson will show up like he says he's going to, and we can talk other forms of ATVs. And thank everybody in the chat for being there. And I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your weekend.
Well, Lenny, I got to say on Jeff's behalf that he was doing an anniversary celebration getaway with his wife this weekend. I guess don't tell her that it maybe slipped his mind when he committed, but she's a lot nicer to look at than you. He posted a couple pictures, so I'd have probably chose her too.
Well, I'm taking most of the day off tomorrow because my wife's birthday is tomorrow. So Terry, happy birthday. I love you so much. That's so I do understand. And yeah, Jeff's wife is way better looking than I am, so that's okay.
Hey,
All right, brother.
this
You
is
have a
coming
great
from.
day. What was that?
I said all this judgment's coming from Shrek here, so just take it for what it's worth.
It's okay, brother. Thank you so much, man. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later, okay?
Sunday. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody in the chat.